All right, folks. Hey, I think you're going to like this one. Everybody likes when I use my whiteboard, throw some data out there, some things to think about. So, hey, I think you know that I do a little bit of retirement coaching. I'm fully retired, been retired since 54 years old. It's been 4 years for me. And I try to help people on their transition to retirement and so I do coaching, okay? Not very many. I limit myself to 4 people a week, but I thought it would be enlightening to share with you a summary of my last 10 coaching sessions that I've had with people. What am I kind of seeing as trends? Not going to get into any detail of, that can be linked back to an individual, but what am I seeing? Okay, first of all, these folks are very prepared, very informed, good students. They've got spreadsheets and very often have some comprehensive software. A lot of people went with my recommendation, New Retirement. Get 2 free weeks by hitting the link below. This is a game changer, okay? But these people are, they're probably in the top 5, 10% of people that have done the work for retirement planning. They're seeking confidence in their plan. Almost everyone says that. And this is all things retirement. This is not just money, finances, budgets, stuff like that, but lifestyle and relationships, finding fulfillment. Some people, that's all they want to talk about. So, all things retirement, I try to share my experiences and journey. I reviewed their plans. They gave me some information up front, answered some questions, and I highlighted concerns. I'm not giving advice. I'm talking about decisions I made and why I made them. And you may want to think about this and get some research this a little bit more. It's not the decision I would have made, or I've got some concerns, and maybe I shine light on a scenario that may cause concerns with what they're doing. So again, not advice. It's really just a coaching session, like I said. So kind of getting just a little bit into the details here. These are concerns that and discussion points that we had in their session. And here are the last 10 people. And these are out of order. These are all mixed together. Okay. But this one individual had 13 coaching opportunities. 13. Okay. When I looked at their plan, had their conversation with them, identified 13 things that you may do a little different. 16, 16, 8, 7, 8, 5, 8, 11, 16. Average was almost 11 discussion points. And I'm going to go into the most common of these in the next, once I erase this. The lowest was 5. So, folks, do you think your plan's perfect? Okay. So here are 13 categories that I picked that were common. I've met with over 100 people, and there's some common themes, and I have some of the same discussions. Everybody's unique. Any of the 100, nobody is exactly the same or anywhere close, but there is a lot, maybe 70% that are some common themes. But everybody's situation is a little bit different, and different decisions need to be made because of that. That's what makes personal finance personal, right? Okay, so let's review again 10 people, okay? Out of 10 people, how many conversations did I have about returns? 9. This may be they have all their money in a savings account. This may be they have all their money in the S&P 500 investment and they're planning on a 13% return, or they're planning on a 3% return. It's just like I question what they're putting in, not telling them advice, but telling them what I'm doing, what assumptions I make about returns on my investments. So really just kind of like, that's odd. Here's what I'm doing. Why are you doing it this way? And they like, oh my gosh, I didn't think of that. So 9 of the 10 people. Bear market plan. 7 of the 10 people, I questioned their their plan for when there's a dip in the market extended, maybe 1, 2, 3, 4 years. How are you going to handle that? And just really stress tested their process, where they're going to do a little more research. Okay. Discussions on Social Security timing. Nine. That's very common. Taxes. I've told you this before. Tax plan. This is by far the biggest discussion I've had with people, where it's got a substantial financial impact that most people aren't even really considering. Okay. Early death. 7. Everybody thinks about longevity. Sometimes I'm talking about, they put in live to 100, which, okay. But very few people put in there, what if one of the spouses dies if you're married at 65? What's that mean? And that stress test on your portfolio can be very revealing. So early death. 7. Budget, 8. This may be your budget. Boy, it seems pretty low. What do you spend in? What's included in there? And we may identify some things that they're not thinking about. Then sometimes it's too high. Like, what are you spending your money on? What? That doesn't make any sense. And if it happens to be on early retirement, I may talk to them about some sacrifices you may need to make. If you're going to retire at 54 versus 64, there may be some, that 10 years, you may have to sacrifice a little bit in your budget to get there. So budget conversations. One-time expenses. 5 people. 5 people really needed a process to account for one-time expenses, like, hey, I got to buy a replacement car, so every so often I've got to put a new roof on the house, or daughter getting married, something like that, was missing. 5 out of the 10. Inflation. They had very low inflation expectations, and I put in, hey, here's what I'm thinking about for inflation. Health insurance was 6 people, where I presented some different options out there. They didn't, a lot of people just going straight with Cobra, one of the most expensive things you can do. And I shared some other experiences and other opportunities for them to do more research on. 2 people just had fundamental errors in their math, just fundamental problems that were substantial. That I identified they didn't know about. That's 20% of the people. 20% of the people had some formula error on a cell, weren't accounting for a substantial amount of money. 20%. 5 of the people had advisors. They were using a financial advisor. And that doesn't mean on all their funds. Sometimes people had, 25% of their funds with assets under management, but they were, half the people. One of the persons was just not ready. They had some severe gaps, and they figured out, hey, I can't do this. That was their decision, not mine, and it was big. But maybe this person was just saying, hey, I don't think I can. Does Joe? What hairs does Joe see? And I kind of like dumped a bucket of cold water over their head and said, hey man, you gotta choose air. Door A has some consequences with it. If you want to retire early, you can't keep doing this lifestyle, for example. And then life after retired. What is it like to transition? The fear of transition, the curse of working one more year. Is that really worth it? Where am I going to get fulfillment? Social groups. That's almost with everybody, 90% of the people. And some people, this is 100% of the conversation. 100% of the conversation is just, I want to talk about this. So that's not that unusual. So that's kind of what I'm seeing. I'll have some actions in a second. Okay, what lessons and conclusions can I draw from kind of a summary of the last 10 coaching clients that I've had? You saw the data on the previous page. Here are the messages I'm trying to bring home to you folks in great position to retire. Do not go it alone. Even advisors make errors. If you remember the data from the previous whiteboard said, 5 of the 10 people had an advisor, and we're still seeing a minimum of 5 coaching opportunities and an average of almost 11 per person. So just don't go it alone. Get a group. This is powerful. This is very powerful. Get 1, 2, 3 people to intimately share your details. These finds that and concerns that I have, they aren't rocket science. The problem is people are just too close to it, can't see it. Get a friend. You know, some people contact me. I do have a link below if you want to secure an hour of my time. Um, Number 2 is you must stress test your plan. A lot of times people create a plan and you know, what if the rates, you know, sometimes they'll put in a rate of return of 4%. And then I say, well, what if the rate of return is 7%? Look what that does to your taxes and your decision making, you know, for maybe a Roth conversions down the road. When to take Social Security? I want to take it at 62. Well, what does that mean? Why don't you put in 67, full retirement age, and see what happens to your model? Early death. Most people don't put in early death. So stress testing, inflation, those are just an example of things that you should like, you know, put to an extreme inside of your whatever process you use, whether it's in your own Excel spreadsheet or a comprehensive software package like New Retirement. So I encourage people, and I would say at least half of the people that of these 10, they use New Retirement and they send that to me in advance. And I'm telling you, the problems and opportunities and areas of concern just jump off the page. I invest probably 45 minutes before each 1 hour meeting, coming up with a list of concerns and things to talk about. But New Retirement makes that jump off the page. And remember, if you're doing this with your own Excel spreadsheet, I had 2 people, 20%, had a big error that they had, and that doesn't happen with New Retirement. So, coaching is my hobby, folks. You know, I cannot have. It's just a hobby of mine. Just like, you know, some people do crossword puzzles and Sudoku or do things like that. I like doing coaching. Okay, you know, it's what I'm doing in retirement. But I do only target 4 people a week. I'm still retired. I still want to live my epic retirement. Don't want this to turn into a job, but I do enjoy it as a hobby. But there is a link below if you want to try to get on my calendar. I have not turned anybody down, but I may have to push that out a week or 2 to stay at my 4. So anyway, do not go it alone. You must stress test it. Hey, folks, retirement, it's great, but don't go it alone. This is Joe out.